So let's begin and continue to dive in that the fruit of our learning should help to bring home all of the rest of the hostages, protect our soldiers and Am Yisrael and all of the innocents, and bring an end to our wars. With that, let's get back.
Amen.
Thank you. Amen. Let's get back into it. Okay, so I believe last time we got up to this machlok, we were talking about this. It's here. It's on page 4. Okay, so let's do a quick mental review. So we have in the Mishnah a machloket between the Rabbanan Chachamim and Rabbi Shimon, where the Chachamim hold that if you had intent to kill someone, a ben brit, in other words, if you were killing a fully fledged Jewish adult, if you had intent to kill a fully fledged human adult, Jewish adult, you killed a different one. So the Chachamim hold that you're chayav, meaning that you're chayav mitah from Beit Din. Rabbi Shimon says you're patur. So we talked about this a little bit, and then we'll skip ahead. We go up to here. Let me make this bigger. On the beginning of page 4 in my sheets. And what does it say? The Gemara asks, "My time at the Rabbi Shimon." So what's the reason? What's Rabbi Shimon's reasoning? I mean, what's the basis for his opinion? Amar Kras, the pasuk says, "V'arav lo v'kamalav ad kavein lo." Right, that he lied in wait for him, and then he arose upon him or against him. And what do we get from that? Until he intended him, until he had intention for him. So, Michael Werner, what does that mean?
Meaning that he lay in wait for somebody and rose against the person who he intended to rise against and kill.
Okay, and how is this a basis for Rabbi Shimon? So what is Rabbi Shimon's shita?
His argument is that if you intended to kill Ben Brit X and killed Ben Brit Y, you are not chayav.
Right.
And so this is saying that, he's reading the text to say that if you intended to kill a person and rose up against him, this is referring to the person you intended to rise up against.
Okay, so let's look for a second at Rashi, which I don't think we looked at last time. So Michael Schwartz, the Aravlo, can you see that? Make it a little bigger.
Yaravlo, Kra Yatirahu, Niktov, Ki Iye Ish Shone Lerehu, Vakam, Sone Lerehu, Vakam Alav.
So what does that mean?
So the Rashi is saying that the verse is superfluous. It should have written that when a man hates will hate his fellow, he should just rise up against him.
Right, and not necessarily should, but in other words, right, nichtav
rises up against him. Okay.
Right, so nichtav meaning we could have written. The Torah could have just written this pasuk without the words v'aravlo. So Rabbi Shimon says v'aravlo seems to be superfluous. So I'll understand from that. What do I get from that? Why isn't it really superfluous? What is Rabbi Shimon get from it?
So he's using it to support his position that the murderer really needs to have intent. for that
Intent.
specific person.
For that specific person.
And it actually should have actually put his plans in action. It's like lying in wait implies that he not only intended to and then flipped his lid and suddenly do it, but he actually, yeah.
Oh, he followed through.
He followed through, lay in wait, and
Very good.
prepared to do so.
Okay, very good. So it wasn't just right. So that I think you mentioned this last time. So the Kamalav, they only had the Kamalav. It could have been
Crime of passion.
right, spur of the moment, crime of passion. Rava tells me that he had in specific intent, but it says Rav lo. He has intention to kill him, meaning, according to Rabbi Shimon, a specific person. Okay, so that's the basis for Rabbi Shimon. And now I'll read the next one for Rabbanan.
V'Rabbanan de pligi alei de Rabbi Shimon mai drash be. So the rabbis, they dispute Rabbi Shimon on what of his darash, what the verse really means.
Yeah, so you could read a little bit different. The pligi alei de Rabbi Shimon mai darshi be. I could put a comment here, right? So what did they darshan from it? In other words, meaning what? Because Rabbi Shimon's drasha is completely reasonable, right? In other words, he has a very good argument. Torah didn't have to say via Ravlo, so since it says via Ravlo, I'll tell you that it means that he has to have intent for that specific person in order to be chayav. So what did the Rabbanan say? Amri diber Rab Yanai. Go ahead and read Michael Schwartz, continue.
Amri diber Rabbi Yanai prat lezorak even lego. The toch havara shel bnei adam kutim v'Yisrael kutim v'Yisraelim aval nitkaven liYisrael zev harag et chaviro lo atakra lemoti.
Limute, yeah.
Lemote. So Rabbi Yanai, the house or school of Rabbi Yanai uses it to exclude the case where someone throws a stone amidst in a group. So Rashi says inside a group of Bnei Adam, which consists of both Kutim non-Jews and Jews, and he intended to kill a Jew, a specific Jew, and he killed his fellow. The verse is not coming to exclude that case.
Okay, no, so Rashi here is saying right two things. So he says, first of all, Amid Rabbi Ani Prata Zoek Evan Lago, and Rashi just explains what does it mean Evan Lago and Evan into the midst of. It means into the midst of a group of people comprised of both Kutim and Israeli. Aval nitkaven li Yisrael zeh v'haraget chaveiro lo atakra limute.
Oh, the second part is not referring to the Evan Lago. It's just in general.
Yeah. So what does it mean?
Oh, okay. So, but if he intended to kill a specific Jew and he killed his fellow, another Jew, the verse is not coming to exclude that case. So he would be chayav.
Okay. So Chachamim say yes. We also darshan va'aravlo. We also say that it means something. But what do they say it means? It comes to exclude the case of throwing a rock into a group of people where you have both Jews and non-Jews. Meaning what? What happens? So according to the Chachamim, if you were to throw a rock into a chavura of Kutim and Yisraelim and you killed somebody, what would be the din?
Well, it's not clear that
Oh.
Go ahead.
I mean, it would not be clear that you specifically intended to kill a Jew because you didn't really know where that rock was going to land.
Well, so what are the chacham? So what?
And so a rav means you need to have a plan in place to specifically to specifically kill a Jew. So if you're just throwing a rock into a mix with people, you don't know who it's going to hit. You don't know who it's going to kill.
Okay, and so how did they get that from the Aravlo?
Meaning you had to prepare to kill specifically the B'nai Brit whom you hated.
Right, or at least the Ben Brit, right? So in other words, the Chachamim look at the same pasuk and they say, you don't have to go as far as Rabbi Shimon. In other words, we agree in principle that Varavlo adds another dimension. And what's the dimension? That you have to have some kind of intent in order to have to have some kind of intent for murder of a Ben Brit in order to be chayav. So, but when the Torah says Aravlo become alav, so it tells me that that excludes the case where you weren't targeting someone specifically. If you weren't targeting someone specifically, but you were just generally throwing it into a group of people where maybe you'll hit a Jew, maybe you won't hit a Jew, then Torah would be poter.
This sounds very American.
In what sense?
Sort of, randomly shooting into a group.
Okay, I'll just leave. I'll leave it at
Plus for
that.
Leela.
I'll leave it at that. Boy, but nitkaven l'Yisrael zeh v'haraged chavero lo atakra limute. So, but the Torah here by saying v'aravo, it does not exclude the case of when you had intent to kill a Yisrael and you killed a different Yisrael, you'll still be chayav, right? So the Arava, we don't go as far as what Rabbi Shimon said to say that you have to have specific intent for that specific Ben Brit. But if you had intent to kill a Jew and you ended up killing a Jew, the Torah still says you're chayav. So that's the basis of their machlok. It's how they each understand that pasuk. So now, Michael Werner, continuing the Gemara, Hechidami.
Hechidami. Elema de Ika Tisha Goim Bechad Israel Benehen Tipokle Deruva Goim Inehu.
Ninhu.
Ninhu.
Mm-hmm.
Inami Fliga
Palga.
Palga Flaga
Palga.
Flaga Safek Nefashot Lehakel Lo Tzaricha Deika Tisha Yisrael V'Goy Echad Benehen Dehave Le Goy Kavua V'Chol Kavua Kemechetza Al Mechetza Dami.
Okay, this is the main thing we want to get up to, and let's take our time to understand it. So first of all, let's go back and translate this. Hechidami. What does Hechidami mean?
So what is this like?
Okay, what is this like? In other words,
What's an analogous?
What's a specific example?
Okay.
Okay.
Elaman. This is one of these.
You're having a block. So Michael Schwartz, what is Elema?
If we were to say,
right, it's Elema. If we were to say,
Okay. Okay, if we were to say
the Ika,
that we had
yeah, sheyesh. The Ika literally means sheyesh.
That there were, if we were to say that there were 9 goyim and 1 Yisrael among them, tipokle, I'm sorry, I don't.
Oh, so tipokle, Michael Schwartz, what is tipokle?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure
Okay, tipokle really just means you could answer it.
Oh, okay, that wasn't
Right?
something
Or
else.
literally comes out of it, typically, you could answer, practically means you could answer it. Deruba goyim ninhu. In other words, you could answer it by saying,
The majority of that this group's supposed to make majority of crime.
okay, so let's understand what you just translated. So heichidam. So I want to know what is the example that I'm trying uh to ferret out here? What is the heichidam referring to? What do I want to know?
What portion of Goyim and Yisrael is needed for
Let's
this?
do something simple. Heichidami is a question on what words?
So it's a question on it's a question on sort of the
There's a very specific answer. I'm looking right at it, and you're looking at it too. In other words, you're just read the Gemara as a linear text. Rabbana Nami Deve Rabbi Yanai, Prat Zorek Evan Lego. Heichidami.
oh look oh
Well, in other words, what's this case of Zorek Evan Lego? What is the case of Zorek Evan Lego?
it's
No, so that's what the Gemara is asking. Okay, in other words, we translate the word. So Rashi added in a little bit more information where he says already at the get-go, pun intended, we already assume that we're talking about a mixed group of Jews and non-Jews, right? But the Gemara here is just asking, so you said, Rabbanan say, Prata Zorek Evan Lego. This is to exclude the case if somebody throws a rock into a group. So heichidami. So how does that work out? What's the actual example where that case that the Rabbanan are saying that the Torah is excluding by the words va'aravo? What is that case specifically? So lema, if you say that the case is that somebody threw a rock into a group of 9 goyim and 1 Jew among them, then tipukle duruba goyim ninhu. So now I could answer that by saying it's mostly goyim. What does he mean? I could answer that.
meaning the fact that it's mostly Goyim would mean that he's not Chayav.
Not exactly.
Or it would
What you're saying is true, but I just want to get
it would suggest that it did not intend specifically to kill a Jew. Or did not necessarily mean to kill a Jew.
What you're saying is also true, but I just want to get the words here from the Gemara. So tipu kle, I could answer it. What does it mean? What's the question that I'm answering?
And is this the case that the Mishnah is referring to?
That the Rabbanan
Or the Rabbanan referring to?
Okay, now you're getting closer. All right. In other words, so what's the heichidami is the question. What's the case of Zorek Evan Lego? So if I say the case is that the midst that I'm throwing into is 9 goyim and 1 Jew, I could answer that by saying it's mostly goyim. The group is mostly goyim. So therefore, what?
So
What am I trying to do? I'm trying to understand what the Rabbanan meant when they said Prat l'zorek Evan Lego. This excludes the case of Zorek Evan Lego. So if I say that the case is 9 goyim and 1 Jew, and he throws a rock into that group, then I could answer that by saying it's mostly non-Jews.
And that's the reason he would be patur.
That's exactly. In other words, I don't need the Torah to tell me va'arav though. I don't need the Torah to make to give this extra pasuk for the Rabbanan to make a drasha va'arav though to tell me the case where there's 9 goyim and 1 Jew, because ruba goyim ninhu, they're mostly goyim. So what's the assumption? That I go after the rov, and when he threw this rock in a lethal way that could kill somebody, but he wasn't intending to kill any one specific person, or even if he was intending to kill a Jew, but we know that most of the people in there are not Jews, I'll go after the rov. In other words, I know that rov is going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to go after the rov even without this pasuk of Ravlo. I don't need the pasuk of Ravlo. So tipuk le, I could answer that case up by saying ruba goyim ninhu. So I still haven't answered my question of heichi dami, right? So my first inclination says, okay, let's take the extreme. Let's say it's 9 goyim and 1 Jew, right? I don't need Varavo for that case. So what's the next case? Michael Schwartz, Inami Palga Falga.
In that case, it would be if it was half and half. Half Jew, half non-Jew.
Right, and then what?
In that case, we would, because it's 50-50, there's a doubt, and therefore we would rule leniently. We wouldn't impose the death sentence on the person who threw the rock.
Again, right. In other words, again, I don't need this pasuk of Aravlo because I already know that safek nefashot lahakel, whose nefesh is besafek here?
The rock thrower.
The rock thrower, right? In other words, his nefesh is besafek because I don't know if he's liable to capital punishment or not. So when it's an equal safek, then I'll say, okay, safek nefashot lahakel. So I'm not going to convict him based on that. And again, I don't need the case of Aravla. I don't need the Torah to tell me that case because I already know safek nefashot lahakel. So lo tzricha. No, I still need it. What do I need?
Is it we still need the Ravlo.
I still need Ravlo. For
Yeah,
why?
okay.
For which case?
There's this last case, if you have 10 Jews and 1 non-Jew.
Or not here, 9 Jews and 1
No,
non-Jew.
9 Jews, so yeah, 1 Jews,
Right.
1 non-Jew.
D'ika tisha Yisrael v'goy echad beinehen. Dehavale goy kavua. V'chol kavua kamechzal mechzadan. There, the goy is kavua. He's fixed, literally. He's fixed. We'll talk about what that means. And anytime you have a case of kavua, then I judge it as kamechza al mechza. I judge it as if it's 50-50. So what does all that mean? So let's look at Rashi here. Okay. Michael Schwartz, why don't you read Tipu Klei v'chulei?
Tipu klei v'kulei lama likra. Why do I need the verse? Why don't we need the Ravlo? Ravlo. Sorry, Ravlo.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. So that's what we understood, right? Tipu klei. I could answer that by saying that it's rov goyim. The lama likra. What do I need the pasuk for? So when the Chachamim said that Varavos prat l'zorek even lago, they couldn't have meant this case of Tisha Goyim and Yisrael Echad. So inami palgu palga.
Inami palga v'falga lama likra lemiftere ha kivan dimatzi lemeimar lekutim ka mitkadvina eat lach lemaftire mishum desefek nefashot lakel mevahatzilu ha'eda.
Okay, so what does all that mean? If you had, if you say it's a group where half are Jews and half are non-Jews, lama likra lemiftere.
Why would I need a verse to make him patur?
Right.
Since we were able to say that the Kutim are non-Jews, and he intended that there is to be patur because of the shefek, because of sefek nafashot, to lakel from a verse that says atzilu ha'eda. I'm not sure I get that. I don't get that last part.
Almost. Okay, so right. So lamali krava mitzvah. Again, why would I need the pasuk of Arat though? Kevan dematzi l'meimar, because I could say the kutim kamit kavina.
Oh, he intended to kill the non-Jew.
Right. In other words, matzi l'meimar means he could have said, the person who's throwing the rock, he could have said, I intended to kill a non-Jew. And then what? Yitlach l'miftere mishum desafek nefashot lakel. Then you would have to make him patur from capital punishment because of safek nefashot lahakel, which Rashi says we derive from this pasuk vatzilu ha'eda. And I'm going to leave that proof text completely aside. It's complicated. Rashi is referring to something that it's not clear, and if you look in the printed Gemara here, it says it refers back to our Gemara in Pei Dalet Amud Bet, but actually doesn't appear in our Gemara. This drasha does not appear in our Gemara, and the Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah, he says he refers you to look at a Tosos in Baba Batra, which essentially challenges this proof of Rashi. So the proof of Rashi here, it's for our purposes, it's not important. We're just going to leave it aside. But we get the basic idea. Now, what does Rashi mean? He says, since this person could have said, I intended to kill Kutim, I intended to kill, since he could make that claim, then I have to let him off. I have to say he's patur, because now it's a safek nefashot, and it's an equal chance that he could have intended for a goy or for a Jew, and since I can't prove that he intended to kill a Jew, even if he killed a Jew, then I can't be mechayev him. I can't make him liable for capital punishment. So Gemara says, Lo tzricha. No, I need it, and I need it for the case where there are 9 Jews and 1 non-Jew, right? Tisha Yisrael v'goy echad beinehen. Now, Michael Werner, I know I want to keep you engaged here, so I want you to read.
Okay.
Vashma'inan.
I'm sorry, where are we? Oh, Vashma'inan kara diftor tipatur mishum dehave le kuti gavur benehan. The Yifninan Mahe Kara de Kolkavur no Hachot Mihliot Dagon Nidon Kim Machatse Al Machatse. EU Sefek Nachshot and Lehakel.
Okay, so let's stop here. So see how best you can translate this.
And if
Ba'ashma'inan.
And so if something were heard,
So ashmina means it teaches us,
okay,
or it implies to us.
it teaches us, implies to us,
Kra.
Kra.
The kra is the
the text, the
it's the
passage.
top, right, it's the subject. So it's the kra, the pasuk, teaches us.
So the pasuk teaches us that he is patur, not exempt. He's exempt
He's exempt,
from any
not from any, mishum, because
right, because there was the group had a kuti in its midst. Or the
right,
Jews had a kuti in their midst.
right. So the Jews had that group had a kuti who was kavua, who was fixed among them. He was placed in among them. It's okay. Keep going. V'afinan.
Um, and so I don't remember that expression.
V'afinan. We learn.
And we learn
Hi, Ra.
From this passage,
From this pasuk,
that any kavua, any goy kavua, whatever that means,
okay,
is not less than it's not less than being judged or nidon, right? Half and half.
As half and half. And just read the next few words, the hadi.
And therefore there's suffix nafashot. And for that, in this case, for which the Finnish reply, the idea that suffix not nefashot on that.
Okay, but Havi, it is a case then of suffix nefashot, and we would be may kill. Okay, so this is a little complicated. So what is it? So presumably what the Gemara is trying to say here, they want to say that when the Rabbanan said the Arav Lo means it's to exclude the case of Zorek Evan Lago. It's there to exclude that case, but it will still include a case of Nitkaven Laroget Zeh B'Haraget Zeh. Right? As long as you had kavana to kill Ploni, but you killed Almoni, you'll still be chayat. So then we wanted to know, so give me an actual case where this is where this works. And so Gemara says, I need this pasuk of Aravlo for this case where there are 9 Jews and 1 goy. So what would we think if I didn't have the pasuk? In other words, I told you that there's a group of 9 Jews and 1 goy, and somebody threw a rock in a lethal fashion into the midst of this group and killed someone. What would I tell you is, let's say he killed a Jew. What would I think that the din is? What would his din be?
I've faded out for a moment there.
It's okay. Let's ask it again. So the Gemara says, we have this case. The Gemara says, I need the Rabbanan because of this case. What's the case? I have a group of 9 Jews and 1 goy. And somebody throws a rock in a lethal fashion into the midst of this group, and he ends up killing a Jew. So if I didn't have any other information, what would I think his judgment would be?
That he intended to kill a Jew because there was,
What would his judgment be?
would be Chayav Mita.
I would think he's chayav mita. Why would I think he's chayav mita?
Because we can reasonably infer that he intended to kill a Jew because that was the most likely outcome.
Okay. Yeah, I could say, right. In other words, based on what I've learned so far. So I'll say, until now, I'm saying, let's say in the first case where I had 9 goyim and 1 Jew. So what did I say there? I said, I don't need a pasuk to tell me that he'll be patur there, even if he killed the Jew, because the rov were non-Jews. But now I have the opposite case. Here the rov are Jews. And so when he throws this rock into the midst of this group, I would think if he ends up killing a Jew that he should be chayav mita, because I should go after the rov. So, but what is it? But what in fact is the din? The din is that he's patur. In other words, right? Because the Rabbanan say, the Aravlo tells me it excludes this case of somebody throws a rock into a group. And so now what the Gemara wants to say is, so what group was the Rabbanan talking about? They're talking about a group of people where the group was mostly goyim, right? It was 90% goyim, and there was 1 Jew. And so even if he ended up killing the Jew, he'll be patur, despite the fact, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. There were 9 Jews and 1 goy, right? And even if he ends up killing a Jew, where normally, had it not been for this pasuk, I would have said he's chayav, because the Rabbanan, what's the Rabbanan's basic approach? They say, nitkaven laharog et zeh, v'harag et zeh, chayav. If you had intention,
And so here,
okay, I know that you think you are.
I could somehow.
Okay, don't worry, I'll get you.
I don't doubt it.
So what's the thing? If I didn't have this pasuk of Aravlo, and I had this case where somebody threw a rock into a group where nine out of 10 people were Jews, and he ended up killing a Jew, I should say that he's chayav, because the Rabbanan hold nitkaven laharog et zeh, the harag et zeh is chayav. But here the Rabbanan say va'aravlo is prat lo zorek even lago. It excludes this specific case. And why does how does this case get excluded? Why didn't I say there's a rov of goyim? I'm sorry, there's a rov of Jews, so he should be chayav because I should go after the rov. Why don't I go after the rov here?
Because the goy is kavua.
Because the goy is kavua. Okay, we haven't yet defined exactly what that means, but let's just take the words. The reason is because the goy is kavua, right? The Gemara says, "Davle goy kavua, v'chol kavua kemechzal mechzadami." And anytime I have a case of kavua, I treat it as if it's half and half. In other words, there's a 50% chance that it would be that thing. So before we look at Rashi here, the rest of Rashi. So let's say let's just translate that into a more comprehensible statement. So there's a status now of the goy who's kavua. He's kavua in this group. And once I say that the goy is kavua, then it means that if I kill any one person, instead of saying I go after the rov to say that whatever the rov is, in this case the rov is Jews, that should be what determines the judgment on the person throwing the rock. I say no. I say because the goy is kavua, it automatically turns the situation into a case where any one person that he hits is a 50-50 chance that it could be a goy.
So we could say maybe that instead of treating this as, one set of 9 Jews plus one goy. It's actually 9 sets of 2 people. Each set shares one person in common with the goy. Maybe too common.
No. I think you said that very well. Kol hakavod. No, very good. In other words, so this idea of kol kavua kamechza mechza dami means once I have something that's kavua inside a group, then I could look at any one person as having a 50-50 chance of being whatever the minority, or whatever the thing is that's kavua among them. So let's see how Rashi, and the way you said it is, I think, is a very good way of thinking about it.
It's sort of like a nice sort of floral Venn diagram.
Yeah, you could say yes. You could think of it like that. Okay, so I'm going to continue reading Rashi here because it's a little tricky, right? So from the 3rd line in Rashi, mehacha nafkalan b'chol duchte b'chol kavua kemechzal mechzadami. So from here we learn out b'chol duchte. You may want to take notes here, right? Nafkalan. Literally means yotzei lanu, right? It comes out for us. So it means we're learning out from here. B'chol duchte, in every place. B'chol kavua kemechzal mechzadami. In other words, this pasuk now, according to the Rabbanan, is in fact the source for the concept of kol kavua kemechzal mechzadami. And the Torah is going out of its way to give me this case of with the words v'aravlo, where by saying v'aravlo means I have to have intent to. So what did the Rabbanan say it means? It says it means I have to have intent to kill a ben brit, and then kill it, and then even if I kill any ben brit, I'll be chayav. But it excludes a case where I threw a rock into a group of people where what was my intention? Maybe my intention was to kill someone. And then, but now I'm looking at it as if any one person I killed, there's a 50-50 chance could have been a non-Jew. He says, and you can't learn from here that it's like rove. Because from where would you bring that to us? Dilma hai depatale lahai, maybe that in that which we make him patur for this. Why? Mishum de safek nefashot lahakel. Because maybe the reason I'm making him patur is because of the general rule that safek nefashot is lahakel, v'lo mishum dechashminan le'karuba, not because I'm considering it to be a case of rove, about mechza yalfina mine. But I learn, in fact, the case is if it's half and half. Di lav kemechza mechza dami, lo havale safek nefashot lahakel. In other words, unless I consider this to be a 50-50 chance that he'll kill a Jew or a non-Jew, unless I put it in those terms that it's 50-50, I would not invoke the case. I would not invoke the rule of safek nefashot lahakel. My patur, and why would he be patur? Haruba de Yisrael ninu, because after all, the rove is Jews. Rabbanan itlahu, and the Rabbanan hold nitkaven lezeh v'harag et zeh chayav. So Rashi's saying in the end, the way I introduced it a little bit earlier. So the Rabbanan hold, right, if we start off with the Rabbanan's basic contention, that if you had intent to kill a ben brit, and then you killed a different ben brit, you're chayav. So why is it in the case of Zorek Evan Lago, where there's 9 Jews and 1 non-Jew, why didn't I say I go after the rove, and I'll say your intention was to kill a Jew, and let's say you ended up killing a Jew. Why didn't I just say that you're chayav because al pi rove you're going to kill a Jew? Because I'll say instead, it's the goy is kavua, and kol kavua kamechzel mechtadam. Because the goy is fixed in place there, and because he's fixed into place there, I have to look at any one case as being a 50-50 chance that I'm hitting the goy. How did you put it? That I can look at it as if
Then instead of being one set of 9 Yisraelim, and one Goy, it's 9 discrete sets that that share, that include, that consist of a Yisrael and a Goy, and each set shares the Goy in common.
right.
So-
Very good. Okay. There's more to say about this concept of kol kavua kamechzel mechzadami, but this is an important start. I'll show you
This is very American.
what's American.
It's sort of this idea, so just throwing something into a crowd without knowing who's there. It's possible, but it's
Okay.
doing trigger locks. I mean, no, not trigger lock, but the other sort of there's sort of these stocks that change, things to automatic weapons that just spray.
Unfortunately, I'll show you something from I'll show you this tshuva of the reeds. Who is the reed? Ishaya Detroni, who's an Italian Rav, who also wrote a version of Tosos, Rabbi Ishaya Reb Mali Detroni, or Troni, I'm not sure how to say it. So, it's a city in Italy, right? He was born.
Trying would that be turned?
Oh, maybe I'm not. It could be. I'm not sure.
Torino,
Torino.
which is Torino.
Okay, you probably yes. Probably. I just know him as, but I think you're right. Right. So he was born around 1180 in the city of Trani, in Italy. He was considered one of the great chachamim of Italy from the Rishonim. And he was known as Kuna Rabbi Yishai de Trani Hazaken, or Harishon, Rabbi Kitzur Reed, right? So he was known as Rabbi Yishai de Trani, the elder, or the first. And for short, he was known as the Reed, or sometimes the rear, Rabbi Yishai Rishon. And why was he given that kinui? L'abdilo minechdo, because he had a grandson who was also Rabbi Yishai, who was also from Trani. Yishai Reb Elia, Shekuna Rabbi Yishai Detroni Hasheni. He was known as Rabbi Yishai Detroni II, Rabbi Yishai Achron, or the last, or the later, or the latter, Rabbi Yishai, and for short, the Riaz, Rabbi Yishai Acharon Zal, Rabbi Yishai, the later, of blessed memory. So the Riaz is quoted frequently by later poskim, the Shiltei Giborim, who wrote Perush around the Rif, and the Reed here. He says a little bit more about the Reed. The Reed learned in the Beit Midrash of Reb Simcha Mespaira, and he was stayed in close contact with the Gedolei Hador of his generation in Ashkenaz, and his tshuvot are brought in the book Or Zarua from his friend and colleague of Yitzhak Reb Moshe Medina. Okay, we don't have to read the whole thing, but let's just give you a little bit because it's actually quite long. But the Reed wrote a tshuva explaining this concept of kol kavua kamechzel mechzadami, which we're not, I'll be honest with you, we're not really prepared to go through the whole thing. No, because the concept comes up elsewhere in slightly different ways. But I will say, one of the main points that he makes, somebody asks, this is one of his tshuvot, and somebody asks him, how does this whole idea of kol kavul kamech tzomech tzedami work? Why don't I, and I'm going to overly simplify his question by saying, we should just go after the rove. Like there's a rove, so why don't we just go after rove? And he gives various examples. And then the reader replies to him and he says, Ein ra'ui lachacham kamocha lakshot ke'ela. It's not proper for a chacham like you, in other words, a chacham of your stature, to ask these kinds of questions, because there's no question here. So he reprimands him a little bit for asking the question. But here he starts off by saying, when do we say when we know, in other words, Kigon, and now he's bringing from a different Gemara. It's a Gemara in, this is an example it's brought in the beginning of Maseches Nida. Tisha tzvardim v'sheret echad beinehem. So what if you had 9 frogs and 1 sheretz? Now, a dead sheretz is mitameh, right? But a dead frog is not considered to be a sheretz. The Torah lists 8 shratzim that if they're dead and you touch them, they impart tumah. So the frogs are not in that list. So what if you had this in front of you, had like 9 frogs and 1 sheretz, and you touched one of them and you didn't know which one you touched? So the Gemara says that we invoke the klal here of kol kavua kamechza mechzadam. He says, so why don't we say that no, there was a 90, let's say it was 9 and 1. Why don't we say there was a 90% chance that you touched a frog, so you should be tahor? We say no, it's a 50-50 chance. Why? Because echad beinehem wait a second, I can't remember what this here we go. It's because actually, when do we invoke this idea of rove? I'm going to just paraphrase a little bit from here. Maybe I'll just leave this as the one example. When do I say I use rove? So I use rove in cases where I can no longer identify whatever the minority thing is. So let's say I have some milk that fell into a meat pot, right, into a meat dish. So what do I say? I can say it's batel barov. And why? Because I can't pull the milk out anymore. It's lost. It's no longer identifiable as a discrete thing. But here, when I have the 9 frogs and the 1 sheretz, both before I touched and after I touched, I still know that one of them is a sheretz. And so it never truly lost its identity. And so I have to treat it differently. So it's not batel barov. So if I extract that to our case here of the 9 Jews and the 1 non-Jew, the fact is that even after someone got killed, the non-Jew is still there and he's still distinct, and I still know which one he is. And that's why I could say at any given time that he's not batel barov. He didn't lose his identity in the rove. And that's why I'm not going to go after the rove. I think I'll leave it at that. It's not a very long tshuva. We may go back to it. But I just introduced it in this context, and hopefully it helps us to make a little more sense out of this. Okay. I put the next part of the sugya here, but I think, let's see if we can go back to our sugya in Yoma and pick up now a little bit from where we left off, hopefully a little bit wiser than we were before we started. Recent documents. Hold on a second. Dun, 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 dun. Talmud Bavli, this is us. Okay. Just wait a second for this to load. So now let's switch our minds back to the sugya that we were doing here in Yoma. I think what we did in Sanhedrin, I think it's enough for us to be able to continue what we're learning in Yoma. So what was our problem back here in Yoma? We had, let's see if I can find the page.
We had the case of a building that had fallen down, and you know that somebody's buried, and you don't know if there's a Jew or a Goy. And you know that there was a group of people, who any one of whom could have been trapped. And so they're figuring out what proportion of Jews to go in the group allows one to sort of operate on the assumption that you're engaging pikuach nefesh.
Okay, so so more or less, but no, in other words, you focused on the right part of the sugya. Let's go back. No, you did more than that. I really, I don't want to take away from it, but let's go back and put this in context. So what was our context? We started from here. This particular discussion started from here. Amar Rav Yosef. So hold on a second. Okay, Michael Werner, why don't you read Amar Rav Yosef?
Okay, actually, you can read from the computer.
Yeah, you can read wherever it's easier for you to read from.
I'll be available. I'm going to
I
take
remember
notes.
last time. Oh yeah, this way you can take notes. So this is,
But you actually have my notes here.
oh, see, even better.
Okay, so Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Lo halchu actually mine the pikuach nefesh achar harov.
Okay, so stop. So just explain this statement. Just translate the statement.
We do not go according to the principle of pikuach nefesh following the majority. Which means we don't base the assumption of pikuach nefesh on a majority count of who's in the group and who's not.
Okay, well, actually, so that may be true. Let's just, I'm going to strip it and take away a little bit of your commentary because it's just because the words say a little bit less than what you're saying, right? Rav Yosef says in the name of Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel that when it comes to pikuach nefesh, we don't go after the majority. So then I want to know, heichidami. What does heichidami mean?
Let's see. What have I noticed here?
You said you explained it earlier this evening.
So what case is this referred to? What's this like?
Yeah, what is this like? Meaning, what case are we talking about? So go ahead. Inema.
Inema. If we were to say that it's like that this case is one of 9 Yisrael and 1 Goy among them.
So read the words.
The majority.
Read the words.
If we were to say.
Read the words. You're speaking English.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry. Inima de Ika, Tesha Yisrael Goy Echad Benehu. Ruva Yisrael Nimehu.
Nino.
Nimehu.
Okay, so what does that mean?
So if we were to say that this case is one of 9 Yisrael and Goy Echad among them, this would be so this would be a case of a majority of Israel.
Okay, and so what? So again, what am I trying to figure out? What's my question? Anybody?
How do we define Pekuach Nefesh?
No,
Or
no. As Rabbi Nur used to say, you don't have to think. You just have to say what you said. What you said. Lo halchu b'pikuach nefesh achar harov. Hey chidam. What's my question? Michael Schwartz, what's the question?
What's the case where we don't have to follow the rule of the Pekuach Nefesh after the Rov, where we don't save a life based on the majority of the people?
Yeah, well, in other words, what is this case of pikuach nefesh where I don't go after the road? So that's my question. I want to know, hey chidami, I want to know, so what is that case where I have a case of pikuach nefesh where I don't go after the road? So if you say that it's a case where there are 9 Jews and 1 goy among them, and what happened? And now you can kick in what you were saying earlier. So what's the case? What case is it where this is a case? How is this a case of pikuach nefesh with 9 Jews and 1 goy?
So this would seem to be following the Rov.
No. What's the case? What happened?
Building falls down. Somebody's trapped. Is it a goy? There's a 90% chance that it's a goy, and that's Israel.
Okay. So if you say this is a case where a building fell on somebody out of this group, where 9 people were Jews and 1 was a goy, Ruba Yisrael Ninhu. So most of them are Jews. And therefore what?
The statement that this is not a case where we do not follow the Rov.
Say that again?
This previous statement that we don't follow the Rov would clearly not be applying to this.
Because
the Rov is Yisrael, and we follow, and we would follow the Rov and assume this is Pekuach Nefesh.
okay, so when I ask the question, hey chidami, how does this work where I don't follow the Rov? So it won't be this case, all right? Because I don't need any other cloud because the Rov, the fact that there's a Rov of Jews, is going to inform me that I'm going to dig this person out even on Shabbos. Michael Schwartz, Palga.
Ele Palgo Ufalga Sefek Nefeshot Lahakel. So rather, if you have the case of 50-50, well, that doesn't apply either because in this case, when we have a doubtful case like this, we rule leniently.
Okay,
It's
so what's
50-50, we rule
Palga?
leniently.
Half and half.
Half and half.
Half and half, and Michael Schwartz, half and half what?
Half Jews, half non-Jews.
Okay.
And so in such a case, we rule leniently and we would go ahead and try to save the victim.
Okay, so there, the Safek Nefashot, here, before in Sanhedrin, we're talking about the guy who throws a rock into a group of people. Here, the Safek Nefashot is whoever this Mapolet fell on, right? So there is a case of Safek Nefashot. I don't know if that person's alive or dead, and maybe I can save his life. So that's the Safek, and there's a 50-50 chance that he's a Jew. So I have to try to save him. Ella, so Ella deika tisha goyim v'Yisrael echad, right? So rather, I must be talking about what case?
A case where there's 9 non-Jews and 1 Jew.
Okay, and then what? Before we read on, so how does this answer my question?
This would seem to be a case where we don't follow, well,
Yeah.
where we would not follow the road.
And so what would happen so let's be specific. I have a group of 10 people, 9 of them are goyim, 1 is a Jew. Mapolet falls on one of them, and I don't know which one. And so now what would I say?
That this does not follow the road, and therefore we assume that this is because nefesh. That
Well, actually, I'm not sure if it's therefore I'm not sure if you got that in the right order, but it doesn't matter. In other words, that this would be a case of pikuach nefesh because somebody there may be salvageable, their life may be salvageable, and I'm not going to go after the road. In other words, so why didn't I say that this is the case that Shmuel was talking about when he said lo halchu b'pikuach nefesh achar harov? I could say that that's this case. That even in a case where there's 9 non-Jews and 1 Jew, and it's only a 1 in 10 chance that the mapolet fell on a Jew, I say don't go after the rove, and rather I'm going to start to dig because maybe the Jew is in there. So
if we're going to map the passage through some heading onto this, we would say that it's not a group of 9 goyim and 1 Jew, but 9 discrete sets of Jew plus non-Jew.
right. So
Therefore there be pliga, and it'd be and palga.
So then it becomes like the case of palgo pala, because I say kol kavua kemeftzol meftzadami. So that's the next part of the Gemara. So the Gemara says, Michael Schwartz, read Hanami.
Hanami peshita dahavile kavua v'kol kavua kametza al kamechetza dame. So,
Okay, what does that mean?
So this is also obvious, is because this is a case of kavua, and any case of kavua is like 50-50.
Okay, so just like Michael Werner anticipated, the Gemara also goes straight to this point. They say, meaning what? I still don't need Shmuel to tell me that in Pikuach Nefesh, I don't go after the road for this case of 9 non-Jews and 1 Jew, and a mapolet fell on one of them, and I don't know which one. I don't need this idea that I don't go after the road. Why not? Because again, it's a case of kavua. The non-Jew was kavua with these other kavua people, and so kol kavua kamechzal mechzadami. And so now, learning what we had learned in Sanhedrin, now I understand. That's such a good. I'll put it this way, right? That's such a good concept that it would preempt. I don't need Shmuel to tell me that I don't go after the rove in this case, because I have another cloud that will tell me that I treat it as if it's a safek shakul, it's mechza mechza, and so I have to dig. So the Gemara has to. So at this point, I still don't know what I'm learning from Shmuel when he says that b'pikuach nefesh I don't go after the rove. I don't have a case where I can apply that, because all the cases that I've used so far, I could learn without him saying such a thing. So Michael Schwartz, read lo
tzricha de farush lechatzer acheret. Mahu de temak called the faresh meruba paresh kamashmanlan de lo hachu b'pikuach nefesh acher harov. So it says, no, you still need this because of the case where one of the people.
What do we need?
You still need Shmuel's ruling that we don't go after the rove for pekuach nefesh, because it's a case of one person going to another courtyard. because you may have said, since the person that separated themselves was from the majority, it's teaching us that we don't go after the majority in the case of pekuach nefesh. We could assume, because of the majority, we might assume that the person who left was a non-Jew, and therefore we wouldn't try to rescue them on Shabbat.
Okay, so what does it mean? What's the case of parush lechatzer acheret? What happened?
So one person from that group went to another courtyard, and that's where the mopelet occurred. Is that correct?
Mhm. Yeah. So I'll
Okay.
say that's how Rashi's going to learn that. What is it? Parush lechatzer acheret. So I had 10 people. 9 of them were Jews. One of them was a non-Jew, and they were all standing in this one chatzer. And then one of them leaves, and he goes into the next chatzer. So in terms of our klalim, right?
And then the mapol happens in the other.
And then the mapol happened in another chatzer, in the second chatzer, but now presumably everyone has dispersed, and I don't know who left the group to go into the other chatzer. So why don't I say kol kavua k'mechzal mechzadami?
This is not kavua.
Because he's not kavua. Why? What does it mean he's not kavua?
He's not in his usual place in that
It's in the group anymore.
Not the place where you'd expect him to be in that outfit.
Yeah, he's Michael.
He's not in the group. He's not in the group anymore.
He's not in the group. And so then the Gemara says, so mahu detema, what would you say? I could invoke a different general rule that says kol de parish meruba parish. Anything that leaves, meaning leaves a group that separates itself from a group. My assumption is, again, if I can't identify it, my assumption is going to be that it left from the majority. So here the majority was what? The majority were not
Non-Jews.
right? The majority. So I could have said when one of them left and I couldn't identify him, I would say kol de parish meruba parish. Anyone who leaves the group, he left the majority. He was one of the majority. Kamash malan. So it comes to teach us that the lo halchu b'pikuach nefesh achar harov. So what teaches us? This ma'amar of Shmuel teaches us that in such a case, I don't invoke this rule of going after the rov, and I'll say that the one person who left may be a Jew, because I'm not going to depend on the rov. I'm no longer depending on the rov when I'm viewing this case, and I will start to dig him out even on Shabbos. Okay, so I think we'll stop here. I would like to do Rashi, but you know what? I'm going to leave Rashi for next time, and we'll pick up from there. And by doing that, I will cleverly force us to review this.
Very clever.
To review this again.
Very
Okay, but
sneaky.
not okay, but that's basically how we understand. So now we have a little bit of a handle on this idea of kol kavua k'mechzal mechzadami and how it's applied in practical terms. So that's it for tonight. Any last questions or comments? Yeah. Okay. So as it happens, I will be out of the country next week.
Oh,
You go back to America?
Going back to America for just about 3 weeks. I'm leaving on Tuesday. So I'll give shir on Wednesday.
Okay.
I'll be here next week. So hopefully we won't miss any shiurim while I'm gone. As much as I enjoy giving shir here in the car, but sometimes I'll have to still go back to the States. Okay, but so, and I think not that it'll matter to you, but I think next week United States also changes their clocks. I think on
Yeah.
Motzei Shabbos.
Yeah. After Halloween.
Oh, is that the general?
I think so, yeah.
There must be some significance to that. Okay.
Yeah, so it's next week America officially regresses.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good night.